So we go from that global level and we're coming down to the local level. Ku-ring-gai is located just to the northeast of here, so we're a very close council to Macquarie University campus. But what we want to talk about is a culmination of a lot of the work that we've done with Macquarie academics over the last few years. And it's about capturing externalities and unintended consequences from bushfire risk management strategies in a changing climate. It's not only bushfire risk management strategies that we're concerned with, there are a range of others too, but the bushfire is probably the best example to show you. So as was said in Black Saturday in 2010, there are many links in the chain of preparedness for bushfire, and any one of them can break, leading to serious consequences. And for us that means you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So why is Ku-ring-gai so interested in bushfires? Well, the climate modelling, as Andy just pointed out, says we're going to have more days of extreme weather. Ku-ring-gai is one of the most vulnerable councils in New South Wales to bushfire, because as you can see by that red margin around the edge of the municipality, we have 14,000 houses on the bushland interface, and that's all high-risk bushfire area. It's mostly ridgetop development with older brick and tile homes, and those brick and tile homes are very susceptible to ember attack from bushfires. It's fire-prone vegetation. It's surrounded by 3 national parks plus 120 bushland reserves within the area itself. We have an ageing population, and as you can see by those areas hatched in blue, we have many problematic evacuation areas. Very hard to get in and out in times of a crisis. But Council also has many obligations around the bushland about how to manage it. We've got to protect habitats and look after threatened species. Invasive pest species need to be controlled, and high potential for erosion after bushfires means we have to put preventative strategies in place. But compounding all this complexity is an increasingly dense urban footprint, and that leads to increasing demand for recreation in these natural areas. And then there are issues of amenity, aesthetics, microclimate, just to name the few in a very long list. So what's Ku-ring-gai Council done? We needed to develop a way to prioritise adaptations in order to invest in those adaptations which were going to create the best result for the least amount of money. So we created a filter for all these adaptations that the experts in the community and council staff dreamed up. And we analysed them across the triple bottom line. And where they scored strongly negative, they got a -3, through to a sliding scale of +3 for those that were very beneficial. But it wasn't just the triple bottom line that we analysed it against. We also looked at risk abatement. And in this particular instance, it's risk abatement in terms of bushfire. So we looked at how would radiant heat be affected by that adaptation. Would it help suppress fire? Would ember attack be limited? Would the transference of fire deep into the urban area be limited as well? Firefighting capacity supported, or the general preparedness of the community? So those adaptations that scored over 12 were rated a high investment opportunity. Below 6, they didn't fall off the radar, but they're a lower priority. So the sorts of adaptations that scored very highly, where we believe the benefits exceeded the costs and therefore the externalities are largely accounted for, are things like installing fire-rated product around homes, making homes more resilient, increasing the number of homes that comply with a bushfire construction standard, and all the way through to just putting in simply fire danger signs. Those with a negative score, where the costs exceed the benefits and we think the externalities are largely unaccounted for, go through from compulsory high-risk property acquisition, where the cost is enormous. Right down, interestingly enough, the poorest score was increasing the number of prescribed burns. And the reason for this is that if you look across a triple bottom line, there's massive impacts in every category. It's expensive, it has social impacts, it has significant environmental impacts. And as a risk reduction measure, it only performs moderately. So what do? We go out and we do more research, and we worked with the RMIT and the Bushfire CRC, who had just finished some work on why bushfire survival plans in Black Saturday almost universally failed. Why was the reason? And they found that it was people are unable to think logically in a crisis. They underestimate the importance of their personal circumstances, their health, how resilient their houses are, and how this influences options when a major crisis occurs. They underestimate the importance of timely triggers, knowing when to decide to get out, and the need for writing plans for catastrophic conditions. And most people can't even imagine what a catastrophic condition is like, let alone plan for it. And dismiss the value of written plans, thinking, well, I've got it in my mind, that'll do. They also said, well, what people should do is understand the strengths and the weaknesses of their family and their house and their property, and understand the neighbourhood and how it might operate in a disaster context. They need to be prepared with practical alternatives as conditions change and change very quickly, and build and maintain local communication networks. So Council took all this information and packaged it up into the Climate Wise Community Project. So this project aims to strengthen community resilience, and by resilience we want people to become more self-reliant. We want them to take preventative action, empower them to make decisions in times of crisis with psychological preparedness. We want to use trans-dimensional mapping, and that's over the personal, the property and the neighbourhood dimensions. And we want it to be multi-hazard. We want them to understand that just because you invest in bushfire, that's not the end of the benefit. The benefit may also translate through to other extreme hazard, weather hazard types. So the Climate Wise Communities Project promotes the value of shared responsibility. It's not just the fireys' responsibility. It's not just councils. It's everybody's responsibility. To understand the roles and the limitations of the emergency services, that if a fire happens, a major fire happens, the chances of a fiery knocking on your door to help you evacuate is very remote. To be able to identify for themselves their personal property and neighbourhood levels of exposure, to identify the return on investment that they're going to get, not just from extreme weather events, but also maybe for extreme heat days. To strengthen the resilience of the homes to the multi-hazard and become aware of the need for flexibility and options no matter what the disaster type is that they face. And importantly, to complement the work that's already being done by our program partners. So just some of the tools that we use. We run a whole series of workshops, and this is continuing to roll out over the next few years. And one of the tools we use is to get people to map their home, to draw a sketch of their home. And they're in a workshop situation, and the bushfire people and the police and the SES are all there looking at their map saying what is a strength and what is a weakness. So it already gives them ideas about how they might strengthen their homes. We get them to think about their neighbourhood in the context of communication. Who are the people that they talk to regularly? Who can they rely on in the event of an emergency? And importantly, who might be relying on them? And then we do a what-if exercise. The RMIT bushfire team actually won an Australian Design Award for this particular exercise. And it's giving people a pack of cards, they take it home and they can test it against their own bushfire plan, that has a whole lot of contingencies that frequently pop up and make your bushfire survival plan fail. So your neighbour asks you for help, your car won't start, there's no water pressure in your house, a fallen tree blocks your driveway, and they discuss what they might be able to do in that eventuality. So what happens when externalities are not accounted for, where the costs exceed the benefits? We believe there are a few examples around bushfire, one being the 1050 vegetation clearing entitlement, another being to increase dependence on hazard reduction burning, putting all those eggs in one basket, and allowing more people to live in the bushfire hazard area just builds the scale of the problem. So in conclusion, we think fostering a shared responsibility approach appears the most efficient and effective way to build resilience. A diversity of approaches will strengthen resilience by toughening the built sector and reducing that dependence on controlling vegetation. We need to build climate change risk adaptations that are sustainable. And to be sustainable, they need to acknowledge and minimise the externalities, be equitable and affordable across the whole scale of the triple bottom line, build independence, and enrich community cohesion and capacity for preparation and recovery from extreme weather events. Thank you.